I want to talk about something because it's part of my story and it lines up with the lessons I was taught years ago about having an emergency fund. And I'll try to take my time and talk about this. So, having an emergency fund is probably one of the best choices you can make for yourself in life, whether you're married or you're single. So, at the time, I was working at a church and I knew a couple and they were going through a bankruptcy. And at that time, they went through the process of filing for bankruptcy and they were told about Dave Ramsey and they were told about the financial baby steps. Okay, and one of those steps was a 6 months emergency fund, right? And so I didn't know about that. And at the time, I wasn't really even remotely good at managing my own finances. It was just, you get your money, you try to enjoy some, and you just take care of what you want to take care of. And fast forward till things changed later, jobs changed. I eventually found a way to save up that first 1,000, right? And when I had the opportunity to do that, after being everything what I've been through with cars, transportation, jobs, everything, I eventually finally saved my first 1,000. Did that. And it makes me think about these kingdoms in the Bible with famines and stuff like that. Like, for instance, when there's an interpretation of the dream, the Pharaoh saw 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows. Long story short, the 7 fat cows were years of bountiful and plenty. And then the thin cows represent 7 years of famine, right? And so when they interpreted that dream, when Joseph interpreted that dream, Pharaoh took 20% of everything and stacked his bread so that when then eventually the famine came. But his nation was all right and other nations was coming to them, buying from them because they had the goods because they saved up for it ahead of time. And it just kind of aligns with having an emergency fund. And it makes me think about what my dad did, because my dad had a lot of years of bounty. Like, he'd worked for GM. He had a lot of, and I saw it. I mean, I saw the cars, right? And he wasn't buying fancy cars, but there's always new cars. And, you know, we definitely got the kind of presents we wanted to get. But then things changed later on in his life. Health issues. And, you know, maybe some financial decisions that didn't really. And I don't know everything because a lot of those times those things weren't explained to me. But there was famine and there is no emergency fund. And because there's no emergency fund, there is no provision, or there was some strife and some heartache and some issues. And I'm facing some of those challenges right now, right? So I got a phone call Monday that I won't have a job at the end of the month. 2 weeks. Okay. This management team ain't been the best management team to work under, and they know it's like a black dysfunctional family without boundaries. Like, you have the boundaries, but they don't. Maybe all management job situations like that. I don't know. But at the time, I took steps and I did delay my feet sometimes in that process. But in that times, I took time to save up for 6 months of an emergency fund. Actually, I saved up for more than what I needed for 6 months. Because I actually saved up for what the income I wanted to have at the time that I was not making the income I wanted to make. So I saved up more than what I needed. And I was like, man, I got to knock this out. So I kept going at it. And then things happened, like I lost a car. So I used the emergency fund to get another car. And then once that was done, right back to working on that emergency fund to get it up to 6 months. And I sacrificed a lot for that. I went without a lot for that and didn't enjoy Wasn't buying video games. Wasn't financing a vehicle. And I kept stacking till eventually I got to the 6 months, because jobs, they change their mind. Cars, they break down. Sometimes your body ain't feeling the best and you got some issues on that front. Somebody dies. That is going to happen whether you got a new car or old car. Those things are going to happen. When you live long enough, those things are going to happen. And so I learned how to keep a written budget. And when I was making I won't say I was making a lot of money, but I had a budget, and then I was aggressive in that budget a lot of the months. Sometimes I had to kind of fling a little bit, but now I was gigging too, and I was taking it all and throwing it at this emergency fund. And it took longer than I wanted it to. It took me a long time since I got into the job. But because I was reviewing this lesson from Dave Ramsey over and over again, I saved up for that emergency fund. I didn't go vacationing over and over again to Miami. I didn't go on cruises. I learned how to get on a kayak and swim my ass on a damn lake for little to nothing, and enjoy that and be fulfilled in that. Learn how to hike somewhere instead of going on vacation. I love going on vacation, but long story short, my job changed their mind on me. And of course, citing every politically correct reason management does cite. You know, they're not going to tell you the truth. And honestly, they don't tell the truth. But I was taught the lesson many years ago when my friends got divorced. And I applied it, and I thought to myself, is anybody else doing this? Why don't you have money for this? Now I can't be too questioning, because you never know what somebody's going through. But when I look at certain couples and people who are married, and I look at the men sometimes needing some money, because I've had couples, married guys, well, I won't say a bunch, but maybe one or two, and of course I don't know the whole thing. I don't know the whole thing, but you know, they called me asking for a few bucks, and I'm like, you can't get this from your wife? There may be some tension there, I don't know. But I do know, if you are a husband, before you treat that woman to anything, and my wife, I have to understand that, like, baby, before we go anywhere, buy anything nice, guess what we gonna do? We're gonna average all these expenses out, we're gonna get it on a spreadsheet, and we're gonna have 6 months stacked up for that. First, you want to know how I'm gonna put you first as a wife? I'm gonna have these 6 months stacked up for you first. Do you want a nice ass ring, or you want to be all right when something happens? Do you want a nice ass car, or do you want to be straight when or you want to still have a roof over your head when shit hits the fan? Oh, I'm leading with that. With anyone trying to see me. Because I've been through too much. I've seen my dad go through too much. And now I got a job that just, we changed our mind. It changed their mind. Now, if it was me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years, 10 years ago, I would have been in panic. It would have been a panic. What am I going to do? I would have been so stressed. I would have been so stressed. I would have probably jumped on the first thing that would accept me, like how I did with the chauffeuring. And that was the first thing I went after that accepted me. I ended up chauffeuring for a long time, and that was a rough life. And even then, I didn't know how to manage finances, or actually keep. When I say manage finances, I mean keep a written budget. That's all I mean. Yeah. But now I know that I'm going to be okay. And it's hard for me to even really accept that, because I'm so used the majority of my adult life, when a job changed their mind on me, I wasn't okay. When the church let me go, the first church let me go, I was making good money, but I didn't keep a written budget. So, you know, I'm gaming, enjoying, and financing a new car. It was a Cobalt. And they changed their mind. And I wasn't prepared for them to change their mind. Fast forward to the second church. 1, they cut my pay by 50%. 2, they still changed their mind, but they didn't like me anyway. I wasn't ready for that. So long story, what I'm saying is that saving up an emergency fund is important to have ready to go for when people at work change their mind. Like I said, and Jean-Luc Picard said something interesting on Star Trek. He was talking to Data. Data was having issues because he was losing this game to this human. And so he was doubting himself and thinking, man, how can I lose to this human? I'm a computer. How am I losing to this human? There must be something wrong with me. And Jean-Luc Picard said, you can do everything right and still lose. And that's not being defective, that's life. You can do everything right and still lose. So, we live in a world where things happen. And I ask for God's protection against the unknown thing that can happen at any time. I'm praying for protection against those things. But in the meantime, I can still make sacrifices to get myself in position to protect myself from the calamities of life by having an emergency fund, to where these emergencies are not really emergencies, but inconveniences. So at this time, I'm inconvenienced. There's a part of me that feels like, and I'm in an emergency, but I think that's maybe a coping or stress response that I have. But long story short, I took steps to protect myself from what just happened this week by having a emergency fund. And if you are employed or working, you must find a way to start putting money away for that. Because a time will come where you will need it. And a lot of times what happens when these time comes, like for instance, I do another couple, truck broke down bad, wheel wouldn't stay on the damn truck. And I loaned them some money. And this is before I even knew I was going to lose. If I knew I was going to have this, I probably, but they needed it. And they didn't have the resources at that time to work out that problem. And I helped them. But I'm thinking to myself, if they had an emergency fund, it would have been no business say, hey. So to me, that says that they did not have an emergency fund. Not a living expense fund, emergency fund. So that's just something I want to talk about, the importance of having one. If you want to sign to do it, please figure it out. The best way I could figure it out to start saving for emergency fund is to keep a written budget. Average out what your expenses are for the year. And 12 months of that is the formula to know what you need to have up in there. All right? So, I'm done talking. I think the rain's letting up. I'll see y'all later.